Hello everyone, today we're going to continue on the topic of shoulders as it's still January. Today we're going to talk about our shoulder stand. It's one of those postures or inversions that we don't really look at so often in the practice. I give you as an option, but you might not know all the little nitty-gritty bits of your shoulder stand. So that's what we're going to break down today. We're going to break down all the postures of your shoulder stand, how to do it correctly and safely, and what the modification should be if that you have any neck problem. So let's start from the beginning. Have you ever had pain in your shoulder stand, especially in pain around your neck, your cervical spine? Now, for the reason could be is you can do a little test. You want to sit down, nice and tall, bring your chin to collar as much as you can. Now, I will put a block on the back of my head just to help you see it a bit better, but I don't think I'm nowhere near that straight parallel line to the ground. Therefore, you can't expect yourself to be in a completely straight line when you go up in your shoulder stand, because it's just not going to happen. And what can also happen that you might not have even a line close to the parallel, you might be kind of here. And then you might feel the pain. Or the other thing you can feel is, I might not be the best example, especially from so far, but some of us have a bit more protruding C6, C7. One of those vertebrae in the top of your neck can be a little bit more protruding than average. It's protruding for all of us, I have to say, but some of you might have a bit bigger protrusion. So when you're laying on it, on your neck, on your shoulders, it can be quite painful. So that can be causing problems as well. So you can avoid shoulder stand or you can modify. Now to modify, you would ideally need those big blocks that looks like an A4 page. I don't have them myself, so I will put the picture up here. You can see it now. So you can use, it's quite a lot of blocks, but you would need to use 4 of those. Hence why it rarely happens that everyone has it. What we can do if you don't have those 4 blocks, sometimes I use my mat, roll up my mat in a nice big place. It should be actually wider than this, because if you would put your 4 blocks, there would be a line of this and then another line of this, so it would be quite long. But I'm going to have to work with whatever I have, so I'm going to work with this. So if you have your 4 blocks, or you roll up your mat, you're trying to position it that your head is hanging down. So somewhere on the base of your neck where your shoulder starts, and that's how you come up to your shoulder stand. Now for some, a mat would be enough to keep you high enough, but for many, it might not be enough. So when you have your head, or actually your back, upper back on blocks, you have space for your head to hang down a little, and you're not going to be compressing onto that neck, and you're going to be helping your neck. So instead of, this would be the straight line from the floor, so your head would not be crushed and jammed down against its structure. I hope it makes sense, but please let me know if it doesn't, and I can talk to you personally, or we can check it. That's why we have this Patreon page. But let's move on. Before I show you the whole sequence of a shoulder stand, I want to show you a little thing that you should be paying attention to, and it is your line in your shoulder stand. But for that, I will have to get into it. But let's get down. When you're in your shoulder stand, you can't always expect yourself to be in a nice straight line. It is because, as I said it before, because of our neck, you might not be able to bring your chin to collar so much that your back of the head to the shoulders would be flat to the ground. So your line wouldn't be straight. So your line might be a little bit rounded, your line might be a little bit going backwards. And also if you have any pain on your neck, or you're not confident to hold your shoulder stand for so long, you can always just lower your legs a little, or a little bit more closer to your head. So it doesn't have to be a perfectly straight line. Don't expect it. You may video yourself to see it for yourself, but it does not have to be a straight line. And that's the most important thing you need to think about your shoulder stand. Let's get into our shoulder stand. To be able to get into your shoulder stand, you want to make sure you have enough space behind you. So you get somewhere in the middle of your mat. When you are in the middle of your mat, you get your legs over the head, place your hands on your back, palms flat, fingertips pointing up, and your palms as close to the spine as much as you can. You scooch your elbows close together as much as your shoulders will allow it. And then slowly you're going to start to bring your legs one at a time up towards the sky. When your legs are up towards the sky, remember, it doesn't have to be a perfect straight line. You engage the glutes, you squeeze the inner thighs towards each other, you point your toes, and you fight to be able to go as upright as much as you can. So you're not just hanging out in your shoulder stand, you're reaching actively up towards the sky. You hold it usually for 5 to 10 breaths. From your shoulder stand, you flex your feet back, bring your toenails behind the head. So you lower the legs down as low as you can. If you cannot touch the floor, you're welcome to stay as close to the ground as much as you can, but supporting your back. Point or flex your foot. When you flex it, it's a bit harder on your hamstrings. So if your hamstrings are struggling, keep your legs pointed and slightly microbend. But if you can straighten it, straighten it. If your toes touch down to the ground, you have the option to interlace your hands behind the back, pressing the palms together and trying to keep your hands on the ground. Staying there for 3 to 5 breaths or 10 breaths as maximum. Then from there, you're going to bend the knees towards the forehead or by the ears for your Kanapidasana ear pressure pose. Now this one, keeping your hands interlaced behind the back if your toes were down. If your toes were not down, supporting your back with your hands. Remember, your back can round. It doesn't have to be a perfect straight line. But you want to make sure that you feel comfortable. Personally, I like to reach my arms above the head and rest my knees onto my upper arms because it takes the pressure off my neck. Some people like to hug around their thighs and squeezing the knees towards the ears if it's right next to them. Staying there for 3 to 5 to 10 breaths. From there, you would bring your hands over your back again, coming back to Halasana. From Halasana, you would come back to shoulder stand once again. And this is the time where we do variations. When you come back the second time to your shoulder stand, you can take Goddess, soles of the feet together. You could take Lotus. Or you could just stay where you were. It is up to you, you can choose. From this posture, if you have done Lotus, we usually do one more posture, which is bringing that Lotus down towards the forehead, just like Kanapidasana, but with a different leg variation. When you do that, you would hug your arms around the thighs, making sure you keep everything close and strong to keep everything safe. Staying for 3 to 5 breaths in that Lotus. We're going to continue on with the Lotus position. We're going to release down onto our back. So first, you're going to bring your hands on your lower back. Lift the Lotus a little bit away from the head. Then you're going to put your hands onto the floor and very slowly going to release your lower back, your back down onto the ground. So start from upper back, middle back, lower back, and very slowly going to release your legs down after your lower back touch. From your Lotus, you're going to come to your fish. We're going to continue with this Lotus position. So from fish, you're going to place down the hands, pressing onto your forearms, puffing up the chest, lifting the head up, and dropping the crown of the head back onto the mat for your fish variation. Making sure your shoulders are not hunching towards the ears. You can always walk your hands lower down towards your heels or towards the end of your mat. Staying there for 5 to 10 breaths. Or variation, you can take your swordfish, which is reaching your arms up to 45 degrees to the ground, palms together, and lifting the legs up 45 degrees off the ground. Holding swordfish, 3 to 5 breaths, depend on how long you held your fish before. Then to release, you release your hands down, pressing to your forearms, lift your head up, chin to collar, and release down to your back. So this was the variation with Lotus. Now let's see what would you do without the Lotus. you would come up to your shoulder stand to 5 to 10 breaths. You would lower down to your halasana, your 5 to 10 breaths. Now make sure in plow, you don't allow your back to round and just collapse and sink. You try to think about tailbone elongating up towards the ceiling and making sure you're engaged throughout. Then from there, you come down to Kanapidasana, ear pressure pose, 5 to 10 breaths. And from there on, you come back to Halasana, bringing your palms down onto the floor, using your hands as brakes, and vertebrae by vertebrae, you're going to release your back down onto the ground. When your hips, sacrum touches down, one leg at a time, you're going to extend both legs to the floor. Taking a moment there, pressing onto your forearms, puff up the chest, lift your head up and drop your head back. Now the first option, you can always just have shoulder to elbow, puffing up the chest and dropping the head back. If you have any neck problems, you can keep your chin to collar. The full version of your fish, you would need to walk your hands lower down, using the lengths and the lifts through the chest to drop your crown of the head back on the mat. So my crown of the head is just there to support, but not pressing down. I'm lifting up my sternum, through my sternum. You can stay there for fish, 3, 5 to 10 breaths, or you can lift up to your swordfish, arms together, palms together, 45 degrees, and legs lifting up 45 degrees. Now really have to use the engagement of the legs, engagement lifting through the sternum to stay there safe. After that 5 breaths, you release your hands, release your legs, press into your forearms and release down to your back. There are 2 more things I wanted to mention. The variations in your shoulder stand. So when you want to do a balancing shoulder stand, option number 1 is just extending your arms alongside the body, engaging, reaching everything up. Just like a headstand, this is a very active posture, not very easy. You would really have to engage and reach high up to the sky. Options when you do variations with the legs. When you do goddess, now making sure when you do goddess, your knees shouldn't be under your hip line. So you want to make sure your goddess is again still reaching up, soles of the feet touch, and your knees are above your hips. Now in goddess, you still have to fight, you still have to hold, and you have the option to bring one hand onto your knee, then bring the other hand onto your knee. To be able to sustain that posture, it's recommended to keep your arms straight, pressing against the thighs, maybe thighs against the hands, but personally I prefer to reach up with my feet, pressing my soles of the feet together and pressing my hands into my thighs, almost like a lock. Hold it there again, 3 to 5 breaths. The variation with the lotus. Some people practice that lotus with the lotus pointing up. So your back is straight and your legs are reaching up, but in a lotus. Option to do lotus coming down almost parallel to the ground, and then extending the arms, again, almost locking the arms, pressing against the thighs, and holding and balancing on the shoulders. Now, you might have longer arms than torso, so maybe your lotus, balancing lotus, might look a little bit different with your knees a bit higher than your hips. Both is correct. The most important thing, never dump the weight onto your shoulders. One more thing before we wrap up. If you ever struggle to get up into your shoulder stand, don't worry about it. You can get close to the wall or to your sofa, put your legs up and putting your back on in position. So you support yourself with pressing your legs against the wall or your sofa while you position your hands, and maybe one leg at a time you start to bring weight over the shoulders. Remember to go step by step. You don't have to rush. Stay there for a few minutes, few breaths, and then come on down. Give your body time and never push any of the postures. Thank you very much if you have watched until here. I hope this helped. I tried to put everything into this little video to cover everything, but if I missed out on anything or you have any questions, please do let me know. Shoulder stand is not an easy posture. In a way, sometimes it can be harder than a headstand, So it's important that you practice it right, you give yourself time, you're not forcing it, and it's important to ask questions. Don't struggle, don't suffer, make sure you feel comfortable and confident doing your postures. Thank you very much and see you in February.